Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Energy Unleashed. My name is Suzanne Worthley with my partner, Kim Hess. Hey there, lady.
Hello, everyone.
I told Kim when we were starting I have a Farrah Fawcett hairdo because I'm in the middle of like growing out this ridiculous short hair that I went through. And I'm like,
I
Kim,
think it looks
look,
good. Your hair's so
I
thick.
think I'm a Farrah Fawcett do.
Look how flat my hair is. I want thicker hair.
Charlie's Angels gone wrong. Oh my goodness. Anyway, okay.
Feathering hair was the big thing.
Huh?
I loved feathering my hair back in the 70s. Are you
Oh my
kidding me?
God, Farrah Fawcett. Remember
Yeah.
that?
Mm-hmm.
All I remember is that red poster that every young boy had on their wall for God knows. Well, not just young boy, I'm sure.
No,
So
no.
anyway, okay. Back to seriousness. This is today going to talk about a couple of clients that are similar, but I just literally just had my last client was very much about in her head. So I want to talk about something that is in the concept of my Confident Empath book today. And I want to talk through this because this seems to be very common in this particular client. I was really walking her through the steps and stages of this. So this is a bit of a repeat possibly from little snippets from other ones that we've done, but I want to zero in on the concept and the idea of think, feel versus feel. And I think this is really pertinent in timing because people are in their head right now, like beyond belief. This is a mind screw year. Yeah, see, look at your face. Does that resonate?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think this year is so difficult because of all the crap that's going on, not even just the politics, but I mean astrologically, eclipse, all of that stuff that's been going on is making our heads kind of like this. And therefore, I think that we are clomping onto that 3D brain.
Mhm.
And the 3D brain is where we store a lot of our think feels. And this is a really dangerous thing, in my opinion. And I always take what resonates, everyone listening. But we get in our head, and our brain itself, the organ of our brain, is storing all these thoughts, images, belief systems, limitations, and it's going all day long. Plus, it's getting pummeled with things like media, family, work, whatever. And we are constantly just ruminating and going. So, any thoughts on that, little lady? Because look at your,
Yes, I have lots of thoughts on that actually. I'm in my brain right now.
yeah,
Ruminating. No, I actually have had a really difficult time shutting off the noise in my head lately. So
right.
for meditating or healing, like I do infrared sessions and I will turn on a meditation and I am like, oh my gosh, when I get out of here, I have to go do this and I need to do that. And I'm like, oh my God, why am I thinking like that?
Yeah.
Quiet the mind, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, and then we got to, I'm like, it's really, really hard right now. And I'm not sure why it's harder than normal
I
to,
think because, first of all, we're getting pummeled with more than usual in terms of all kinds of things. I mean, look at the politics year, but then look at all the crap going on in the court systems, all of the stuff that is upheavals all the way across the board. We're doing things like wars, we're doing things like protests. All of this stuff is very 3D in terms of, and it really hits the core again, Kim, of that safe, worth, and enough. And when we hit those core, really deep embedded DNA programs of I'm not safe, I'm not worth, I'm not enough, we will ruminate on those until the cows come home. It's constantly, and we're just being force fed anything to trigger those.
Mhm.
And it's going to not let up. So I think our job is to what I'm telling my clients, if they choose, which is going from the brain pattern and knowing that this is only a construct. This is something that I'm fueling and I'm feeding and I'm creating and I'm owning, but it isn't even really connected to my actual sentience of being a human. So the goal is to get out of the egoic head because this ego is what's triggering. I'm not safe. I'm not, that's what's triggering. Drop it down into the sacral, into the belly itself, where we have our sentience and our feel center. And then after it is in that feel center, I can do a number of things. And this is what I wrote about in the book also. Feel the feel, own the feel as yours or not, Because oftentimes what's going on in my head isn't even me. I mean, think about it. Oh, my kid. Oh, I'm worried about my kid. You're not in charge of your kid, and your worrying is not doing anything for your kid, right?
Mhm.
So when we can start to own the fact that this worry isn't even mine, it's mine about my kid, I can start to dissect that down. Or God forbid, if I'm actually doing collective ruminating, I'm worried about the world. Oh my gosh, the world is falling apart. We can dissect these things down and start to own them as an individual in our belly system and really start to break it down and feel the feels. And it was so cute yesterday when I was working. This is so typical. It's happened at least 3 times this week. I was pretty booked this week, and people are so in their heads. So I'd say, so tell me how that feels. And they would go into this huge description, and there wasn't one feel in it. And I said, no, 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 tell me how that feels for you. And then they would go, oh, blah, 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 off to another whole thing. And it would happen over and over. And it's so funny because they don't talk about the feel, they talk about the think feel, which goes into a million different areas. And at least 2 to 3 times, I would bring them back and say, yeah, but that's not a feel. What does it feel like? And even then, it feels sad. Sad is an emotion. That's not a feel. What? What do you mean? Sad's an emotion? So it's really, what does sad feel like? Does it feel like my stomach is cramping? Does it feel like I'm melting? Does it feel like I'm invisible? What does it feel like in your body? And they just go off. And it makes me just giggle. And I'm not making fun of anybody or judging anybody. This is just how disconnected we are from our tummy.
Mhm. Yeah,
Isn't
that
it
makes
just
sense. So
crazy?
go into an example though, like with one of these clients, like what was like you were asking him, what does that feel like? Like what?
Yep. Okay, so in the case of there was a lot of abandonment this week, lots of
Mm,
abandonment soul contracts. Okay, and we can even go bigger with this, but I want to keep this particular one short and concentrated on this. But oftentimes our soul contract will bring forward the thing that's triggering.
okay.
Okay. So in this case, it would be abandonment or betrayal. Okay. So if I have abandonment and betrayal as my soul contract lesson plan, I'm going to find that in every sandbox I play in. This is how I described it in the books, a sandbox of work, of relationships, of my body, of my whatever, my childhood. I'm going to have some aspects of those lessons in every point of my life and every timeline in my life because that's what I signed up for.
Mhm.
Okay. So look for that common denominator of what it is. And in this case, it would be abandonment. So, maybe my dad died and I'm just so upset my dad died. And I'm so angry my dad died. Well, what did that trigger? Well, that triggered that I'm all alone. Well,
Mm,
gosh, now I'm all alone. Well, what did that trigger? Well, that triggers that I'm not safe. Is the fact that your dad chose to move forward in his spiritual journey anything that is going to actually do with your safe at an adult point in your life? It will make me sad, which is that emotion. It will make me confused, angry, upset, all those emotions. But the real true gut reality is I'm an adult woman. I am capable of finding safe.
mhm.
And those two don't cross over, but it's the trigger. Do you see?
Mhm.
And so what we do is we start to unravel that concept in my stomach going, no, I'm actually triggering safe or unsafe. And the reality is that's not even a truth. All of these other things are emotions that are attached and around. So I can start to deal with these knowing that this is illusionary.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So it goes back to really safe, worth enough. Those kinds of things are the actual feels.
Those are
There's
those are
like,
the ones that you can grow your feels out of because
okay.
what is the feeling of not safe? Again, the feeling of me not being safe is I'm searching and I'm searching and there's no one for me and I'm getting really scared and my skin is really tight and my hands are getting really, balled up and my stomach wants to cramp. Those are the feels. So we want to get to the feels so that my body is actually working it through
Mhm.
versus it's staying up here ruminating.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to separate, and I mean, I've been through your classes and read your book but to separate out the emotion
Mm-hmm.
as a feel.
Mm-hmm. And even
That's,
scared, even fear. I'm scared. That's that's a concept of an emotional position. What does scared do to your body?
mm,
Get into your body so that you can own that or not. And then when I put that scared body action, meaning again, I'm sweating, I'm breathing really shallow, all of those are going to be my red flags to go, oh, I just triggered safe.
Mm.
So that you're having some construct to work with in the actual physical body instead of just going off into a million directions in your head. I mean, think how crazy we get in our head.
Well, and I think that creates so much illness. Like I can see where it creates a lot of like different effects in your body, like you said, like your stomach, your breathing, your heart, racing, or
Mhm.
whatever that might be, that it can create all kinds of physical aspects as you're going through that too.
And it limits our power, which means I don't now have any gasoline, which is going to make me sick faster, right?
Right.
And I mean, there's a lot of people that a lot of empaths listen to this, ourselves included. And I think empaths, a big thing that I see is hidden resentment. You know,
Mhm.
I'm doing this all alone. You're not helping me. I'm not good enough. And there's a tie in there for my worth. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
you're not helping me, so I must not be worth helping, which means I'm not worth. And all of that is just ridiculously untrue. I was telling somebody the other day, you can lose your marbles because you ask your spouse to do the dishes and they don't. And now you're equating your worth value to dishes. And we do it all the time, myself
All the
included.
time. All
I
the
catch
time.
myself still doing that, and then I have to laugh and say, seriously, Suzanne, you're doing exactly what you teach because we're human and we will flip right back into that. The goal is to be present and aware and catch yourself in it and step back as the observer and laugh your head off, going, seriously, you're not worth a dirty dish? Of course you are. That's ridiculous.
I just did this a couple days ago with my husband over a car issue. I'm like, isn't my safety worth something to you? Like, am I not worth it? Because you would think you would fix it. And and he was like, what are you talking about? It has
Oh,
nothing to do with that.
that's awesome.
So gosh, it is really hard right now. I think that I've struggled with this a lot in the last couple weeks.
Yep.
Hmm.
And how we catch ourselves is by staying present with all of this knowledge and information in our stored system. But the presence gives us the opportunity to connect with the feels that are going on, dissect them, move them, work with them, that then turns into experiential wisdom. So the more that I do this, the better I get at it, the more I can quickly paradigm shift. And I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I write about it, I teach it, I speak it, and I do it all the time. So we are not going to ever be like some at this because we're going to get our butts kicked from, especially right now, by the way, from collapsing of lifetimes, collapsing of timelines, collapsing of past lives, future lives, collapsing of everything anyway. I mean, I can get pinged on a past life in this life somehow, and I don't have any capacity to even put those two together. So it's like really, really important to just keep dissecting it down and get into the feels of, is this even real for this body right now? You know?
Yeah, right. It is confusing. Because it's like I thought I already went through all of this in my head. Like I was better at this than I am right now. Like so then I start beating myself up.
And there goes your worth again. I'm not enough. I'm not doing enough.
Exactly.
I'm
Right.
not doing enough. And this is the huge one that most of us get into. I think enough, the enough concept, the enough trigger, it is just getting beaten down this year. It's just really
So
hard.
so as a consciousness of one, obviously there's some big work going on around this that's bringing it forward for so many people. Right.
Yes.
Is that what's okay? Because
And
that feels
remember the breakdown of our so-called hologram or simulation, whatever thing you want to use for that, what we're dealing with here. The breakdown of that is chaotic and in and of itself scary
Mhm.
because we would much rather be hanging on to something that I think is real, even if I know it isn't real because it feels safer
Mm.
than entering into something that I'm not even sure about. You know, think about that.
Right. Yeah, this is, I don't know. Ooh. So for anyone who's really realizing as they're listening to this that boy, I've been doing a lot of this
Mhm.
lately. Your recommendation is to really like take that moment, step back and start to go internally to figure out, what is the trigger for this? What is
And
bringing this forward?
it's actually a three-step process, to be honest. It's like if you're in your head and your
Hmm.
monkey mind is going crazy, that means you're not in the lower part of your actual physical vehicle, which is your physical chakras, one, two, and three.
Hmm.
And two, the sacral carries my true emotions and feelings and relationship to that. So get out of the head, recognize that I'm monkey mind right now, and drop it through the body and hold that to the extent of dissecting it down or discerning it or pulling it apart, because we're scared of the scared of the scared when we're in our head. So we really want to work with it in the belly area and really feel that. And then from the belly area, when we're feeling like, yes, I'm releasing things that no longer serve me, I'm opening up again, I am worth it, I am loving, I am loved, we move it up into the heart area, which is the bridge between the spiritual where it's been messed up
Hmm.
and the physical where it has been ignored. And we
Hmm.
move that to the heart area and bring it out again in our bubble or in our life or in ourself to say, no, I am here as a love bubble. That's what I'm doing. I'm experiencing. There's no right, there's no wrong. It just is all of that stuff. So it's forgiveness, it's compassion, it's empathy when it moves up into the heart space.
Okay.
So
Okay.
those really wonderful, beautiful qualities that really take care of safe, worth, and enough
Hmm.
reside in the heart space of compassion, forgiveness, kindness, oneness, all of that stuff. So it's a three-step process, and it brings the three body parts together. The spiritual that's programmed and off and running and not even in alignment drops into the physical, which is shut down and not even working, to the bridge in the middle, which is then holding it together.
Okay.
And hence oneness within myself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which in fact then is improving oneness as for the whole when
Sure,
you're.
because then you're in that collective consciousness
Mhm.
anyway. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's not, I'm not going to say this is easy,
Not easy. No,
but
it's not.
the more you do it,
Hmm.
it is easier because you're recognizing, and again, I'm going to go back to what I said to my client. You're recognizing patterns, and the patterns will bring you back to the sandboxes. Oh, shit, I do this at work. I do this with my family. I do this with my body. And then that brings you back to, oh my God, I'm such a dork. This is my soul contract. That's why I'm having this. Now I honor my soul contract and I don't think that I'm not worth. I go back to the fact that I signed up for this. I'm the one in charge of this. I'm the one in command of this. Nobody else can fix this, and so on. So you take your power back.
You take your power back. And then, I've used ritual sometimes in the past too to release certain things that come up like that I just, because it can go back to your belief system, right? Like you're believing something um
Why
on
don't you
top
talk
of.
about that further, Kim? Why don't you tell them what that looks like or sounds like?
I think it was more love of self that I was working on this with. And it was that I was not worthy. I didn't feel safe. I have several of the things that I was working through, but and it was years ago that I realized how much I was I was empathing and I was taking on everything for everyone else and not putting myself first. So it was when I started first going through the healing process that I was doing this. And one of the things that I did, and I've done this for a couple of different times or different reasons, but um, was that I had read that you can fill jars with water and but put an intent what that thing is that you're working on. So I do not feel worthy. I'm putting it in the jar and I put the lid on it. I feel my body isn't healthy. Put it in a jar, put the
Mhm,
lid on it.
mhm.
And what I did was I went to the lake and then I did a little prayer and kind of meditation and I released those into the water
That's awesome.
to let it really go. So it's a physical act of working to let that go, whatever it is. And there was such a sense of relief through my whole body when I did it that way. But also, I think sometimes because you're trying to get out of your head,
Mhm.
that physical way of doing that takes you out of the mind jumble a little bit, and it's putting it somewhere and letting it go.
I think that's awesome. I've
Yeah,
known you forever and I never heard you talk about that. That's a beautiful, really super cool symbolic thing. And what's really secondarily special about that is water is emotion.
it is. Totally. Plus, I'm a water baby, so that made
Yeah.
sense to me, right?
Yeah.
To use the water to help release all of it. And but it's so interesting that these things, like, it just revisits. It's kind of like history. History's revisiting. Like, look at the 70s and protests and all the things and war and all the, I feel like we're like repeating some of this again that we don't
Yeah.
understand. Gosh, we already did this once. Don't we know
Yep.
how to do this better? And that's kind of how I
Oh, because
feel
we've
like
been doing that as a human race since day one. We're in
thousands of
cycle after
years.
cycle.
But
See,
it's like,
Charlie's Angels is coming back, I'm
yeah.
telling you. I
But the
think
self,
that that's a really, really good point because the human experience does work in cycles. That's the point. But
Mhm.
hopefully we learn from the cycles, right?
Yeah. And then when you think about what was brought up between the March, like March and April with all of the energetic things that were happening, it was rebirth. So
Yeah.
if you're going through and letting, like, these things are coming up, it's like, okay, it's time to really let that next layer go.
Yep.
It's bringing it more. It's time to let it go in the rebirth process.
Well,
So,
and our Earth itself is structured with equinoxes and solstices specifically for that 4 times a year, once a quarter. If
mhm,
people would understand that this is an opportunity, not that there isn't that opportunity every single day, mind you,
mhm.
but the Earth itself aligns in so many ways for that. And the ancient and the indigenous knew that. That's why their structures would honor things like the sun coming through at an equinox or the moon coming through at a solstice or whatever, backwards. But yeah, I mean, it's really important to really understand this isn't new. It's
No,
just different.
yeah, and they would hold celebrations during that time in
Yeah,
that change, which
yeah.
makes so much sense.
Yeah, and work with
Yeah.
joy instead of working with fear, you
Mhm,
know. And I think this year that is what's cool about the actual the eclipse was so joy filled, and we worked with that kind of energy so much differently because of that.
mhm,
And we can move things just as quick with joy as we can with sadness. In fact, it even goes faster.
mhm.
So I think that's great that you joyfully put something into, a jar and let it into the water that you love so much. Work with the things that you love, right?
Yeah, right. The elements are so important in all of this, in that,
Yep.
the whole process. So, this
It's
is
yeah,
such a
this is
good reminder. What a good one to bring up, because it really
yeah, I
is
just
for me.
I was literally just client after client after client in the last week. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy because we're all doing it. We're all doing it. No one's special. And we are really finding that this is an opportunity, but it feels chaotic and it feels icky.
Yeah.
So hopefully this gives skills and one, two, threes kinds of things for those logical people that are still in their head. So again, brain, mind, monkey mind, drop it into the actual sacral, feel it, discern it, pull it apart, allow it to release, get it back to source in any way you choose, bring it up to the heart, and then refill with that beautiful, wonderful self-love stuff. So bringing all those chakra systems together in the ethers.
Mhm. And you know
Cool.
what? Part of that, make sure you pay attention too, because this is something that I was also doing, is I was not connecting this way either. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Good point. Good
when you're
point.
balancing this, you're putting it where it belongs in that love space. But I also was not connecting this way. So,
And this
male,
way,
female.
what you're talking to and referring to, if you're watching, is your male female. So our
Mhm.
male side of the body is the right hand side, female is left. So when we're in that monkey mind, we're
We're-
way overdone on that right hand side. Go, 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 do, do,
Yeah.
do. And the left hand side, which is emotion and feels, is like, what about me? And so you're right. That's a really good point to bring up at the end, is to synergize these two and sacred marry that as well. And basically that collapses us this way and it collapses us this way, which means technically we work from the heart.
Yes. Perfect. Yes. All
Awesome.
together.
All right. Well, good luck with that this week.
Here we go.
Yay. All right. Well, on behalf of Kim and I, thanks for joining us. If you choose to, which we hope you do, hit subscribe, like, share, whatever, and maybe even leave us a comment because we'd love to hear from you. So until next, everybody, cosmic hugs.
Bye.